Ethan Behrman, Left Coast News.
Thanks for listening here to Dispatch 42. I'm enjoying the outdoors today. I thought I have that opportunity. Well, the upper Midwest is facing a blizzard, which is where I grew up. I'm sitting outside in Southern California to talk to you today. Thank you so much for listening. Really, really appreciate it. I hope you have the opportunity to share this podcast with others. Subscribe on YouTube and iTunes. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever that might be. Really, really appreciate it. So while the world continues to melt down because of Donald Trump's criminal behavior across the world and throwing our allies under the bus as the Kurds are getting slaughtered by the Turks right now, the Kurds who have fought alongside us and helped us defeat ISIS and helped us fight Saddam Hussein and the extremist groups across the Middle East, and Donald Trump just said, my tower's in Istanbul, Erdogan, go ahead, kill them all. That's basically what our president did to allies in the Middle East, even though Turkey is a NATO ally. We had already drawn down the troops for those who are like, well, we don't want to stay in foreign wars forever. I get that. I don't either, but we were down to hundreds of troops in northern Syria when President Trump decided to do that to him. Oh, yeah, right, and new criminal charges against Trump's syndicate associates that are happening, it seems like, by the hour right now, connected with Rudy Giuliani and Ukraine. And we have all of those scandals, the impeachment hearings. There's new blockbuster information that just came out as well on Trump getting rid of the ambassador in Ukraine, the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, that there's a potential tie-in there with Rudy Giuliani and pressure from somebody who's not even a government employee. If we have concerns about the Bidens, there is a formal process for investigating American citizens doing criminal actions overseas, not sending personal attorney Rudy Giuliani, who's accepting all kinds of money from foreign powers over the last number of years anyhow. Well, that's a problem. So let's bring it back home for a second. Truly, to your home. What do you count on in your daily life? How about this? Electricity. You count on having your lights on. You count on your refrigerator running. You count on that power to make sure you've got internet access to listen to me, or God forbid you have medical equipment that depends on electricity, and that electricity goes out, right? It's one thing when there's a blizzard or a tornado or an earthquake, something like that, and the power goes out. Or if you live off grid and you've had issues, the power goes out, right? But what about, the wind is up a little bit today, just a little bit, not a lot, and the power company decides to shut off power to you because they've screwed up so badly for so long, and they've killed so many people that they are unable to run the power lines safely. And now they're shutting off your power. That's right. If you happen to live in Northern California, the Bay Area, hundreds of thousands of people have had their power cut off in parts of 22 counties because of Pacific Gas and Electric. 600,000 people as of about 11 a.m. on this day, which is Thursday, October the 10th, 2019. 600,000 people had their power shut off because this company is not functioning properly, because this company is in bankruptcy protection again, because this company, PG&E, chooses to have a giant, unaccountable bureaucracy that pays massive bonuses that a bankruptcy judge just 2 months ago said, oh, why are you paying these people big bonuses when you have failed, when you have killed, in the case of the Camp Fire caused by Pacific Gas and Electric power lines, killed 85 people. I was on the air on a San Francisco radio station when all this went down. And I was getting calls from people, my family's missing, my family's dead. We need to do GoFundMes because people are dying because PG&E knew that these power lines hadn't been updated for 100 years. And they knew it. They knew they were rusting. They knew there had been other damage previously. And the Camp Fire of 2018, California's deadliest wildfire in state history, that started on November 8th, 2018, killed 85 people, destroyed nearly 19,000 homes, businesses, and other buildings, was caused by electrical transmission lines owned and operated by PG&E. They filed in bankruptcy bankruptcy protection, Chapter 11, saying they faced an estimated $30 billion in wildfire liabilities. And now they're saying, according to securities regulators, at least $10.5 billion in liabilities for the Camp Fire. There also were other fires in the North Bay the year before, near Santa Rosa and Napa, that had killed people and destroyed billions of dollars worth of property, again, because PG&E didn't maintain their lines. So instead of fixing any of the problems, the wisdom in Sacramento, California, where our state capital is here, in the great state of California, the golden state of California that I love so much, so dearly, have decided we're going to let these people off the hook. We're going to actually not do anything. We're not going to hold people accountable. We're not going to say bonuses shouldn't be paid. Better yet, what I was calling for on the air in San Francisco, and I'll wager that played something into a non-renewal that happened with my contract. It's very complicated. I can't divulge all of that information right now. Was me calling for a breakup of PG&E. It was actually in the papers. People were calling for a breakup of PG&E. I went off the air. The calls for PG&E to be broken up ended. Who is the advocate for the people in Northern California and PG&E's territory? Who is looking out for the people? Who is looking out for doing the right thing and fixing what we are now finding is a failed grid? It doesn't work. It's too expensive. The bureaucracy is overburdensome. It doesn't serve the public. And we have exceptionally high electric rates. We're comparable. The only place that's higher now is places like Hawaii, because it's an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Of course their electric rates are higher, although they needn't be either. That's a whole nother story. We're going to get to that. So PG&E is shutting off people's power because the wind is up, and they're afraid that their crap-maintained power lines will fall and start fires, killing people and destroying homes again, because they didn't spend the money on maintenance. The Public Utilities Commission in the state of California never mandated proper maintenance of the lines. Nobody is held to account. This is what happens. So here's the problem in a large bureaucracy. So bureaucracies in and of themselves are not bad. But here's what happens. So a small company. Have you ever worked for a small company? I've worked for small companies. I've owned small companies. I've built small companies. I've helped grow companies. When you're small, everybody works really hard and wears multiple hats. As the company grows, you need to divide. Maybe when you're small, there's an accounting person. As it grows, now you have an accounts payable person. And then you have an accounts receivable person who pays the bills, people who make sure you're getting paid. And then as you continue to grow, maybe you get a chief financial officer to oversee the accounting department. Now I've got 2 accounts payable people and I've got 3 accounts receivable people. And now I need an IT staff. And then it just continues to grow as the company grows. Well, what happens, and by the way, I worked at a large public utility like PG&E. On the inside, I developed the corporate level budgeting system at an equivalent to PG&E. I know exactly how these companies work from the inside. I helped design the computer systems inside of one of the nearly equivalent to PG&E companies. The bureaucracy gets so big, and I've done this for many other companies, by the way. As the company gets big, the bureaucracy gets big and bloated, and people have overlapping jobs. And now people, instead of doing their jobs on a daily basis, now I'm spending 2, 3, 4 hours a day in meetings that aren't necessarily producing output. They're to make sure that everybody's on the same stage and on the same page, and we're gonna talk about things in the same way. And it just gets bigger, it gets more bloated, and it gets less efficient. Well, PG&E, when you get to that size, becomes a perfect example of inefficient bureaucracy. Why do they employ so many people? Why are they the number one employer in San Francisco? They are. Pacific Gas and Electric is the number one employer in San Francisco. Do you know why they do that? I'm going to share a little secret. The reason they employ so many people, these large bureaucracies in places, it's everywhere, by the way. It happens in red states too. It's not a Democrat problem. It's not a Republican problem. PG&E grew this way through Republican administrations and through Democratic administrations, okay? In the state of California and elsewhere. These happen everywhere. What happens is they employ so many people because it's good for them. They have political leverage to get politicians to do what they want. Because if everybody's employed by PG&E, by God, we can't break up PG&E and say a way more efficient way to run our grid in Northern California is to run smaller neighborhood or county size grids that are not managed by this giant bureaucracy. But now I have smaller bureaucracies, and maybe in my local grid, I'm going to build a geothermal power plant. And we're going to produce electricity that way. We're going to install a huge slew of solar panels and giant batteries, and we're going to install some iron flow batteries or vanadium flow batteries as our backup, some real cutting edge technology. Or we're going to invest in small hydropower for that's your reserve power when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing if I'm doing wind. That is what the future is smaller grid, not giant centralized grid. Thank you to a loud motorcycle driving by. And that is the future. That's more efficient. That is a way more efficient way to run things, but we'll never do it when a giant bureaucracy like PG&E is in control, is in power, and because they employ so many people, they refuse to actually address the unbelievable bureaucratic inefficiencies that have happened over the decades. This is built up over time. This is not because of one person or one administration, but why have so many administrators? Why have so many executives? If we were short on spending money on doing line inspections and line repair, cut executives out. You don't need that many executives. They fly around, they drive around, they glad hand. I have seen this far too often. They sit in cushy meetings with expensive lunches catered, and they're all serving on each other's board of directors. So everybody gets a nice cushy board job, and nobody wants to rock the boat. Nobody wants to rock the boat. So what needed to happen with PG&E and what needs to happen with these giant power companies is we really need to do, and we tried it in the early 2000s and it failed because of corrupt Enron. And so California ditched it. It's actually fairly successful in states like Texas. The example is, if you're going to run a big grid, you have a state pseudo-monopoly that runs the grid itself. In the state of Texas, it's called ERCOT. And so they're responsible for the grid. That's all they're responsible for. And then you have producers, you have distributors, and you have choice as a consumer of who you're buying your electricity from. PG&E actually helped make sure that the state of California will never go that route by fighting an initiative that would have allowed that to happen a couple of years ago. They blocked it because they have clout. They have millions of dollars because they employ so many people, and the PUC and everybody else, nobody wants to rock that boat. They blocked it. We should have neighborhood grids. We should have county grids. I really believe in a neighborhood grid. Great, so we're going to invest in a bloom box. We're going to have some solar panels in my neighborhood and like a master planned community, totally disconnected from the main grid. We have some large battery systems. We have some gas generators as backup. You have a balance across different technologies to ensure consistent electricity, and maybe it's not necessarily much cheaper, but now I'm not dependent on giant PG&E shutting off my power because the wind is blowing and they know they never properly maintain those power lines. Half of them should have been underground in the first place. They didn't do it because it was too expensive. Oh my gosh. Instead, we'll invest in all kinds of other expensive pet projects, and that's why we're going to pay too much for electricity. It's unbelievably infuriating to me. I've been getting messages from all kinds of listeners from my San Francisco show asking me about what's happening and why they're dealing with this, that they're getting their power shut off right now. I was speaking up about it. Everybody else is too afraid. Please share. Give me your feedback of what's happening. But it's unconscionable that we are behaving like a third world country. I've spent time in third world countries where they have to turn off the power because they don't have a reliable grid. They don't have reliable power production. And that's what's happening in California. We are operating like a third world country today, October 10th, 2019, because we've depended on a couple of gigantic, bureaucratic, pseudo-public, pseudo-private, pseudo-government power companies that aren't functioning efficiently in any forum. They're not working well on the public markets, they're not serving the public well, and they're not serving the government agencies well either. They're serving nobody other than the thousands of employees that are dependent on their jobs and their retirement plans and their incomes. And those people will get rehired when we break up the PG&Es of the world. Send me your feedback. Let me know what you think. I'm fired up about it. I can talk more about this. So let me know what your thoughts are. You can send me email, leftcoastnews@ethanbehrman.com. Comment below as well. And please, the most important thing you can do is share with friends, subscribe, my YouTube channel, on iTunes, wherever you're listening to this, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram @EthanBehrman. I'll talk to you in the next dispatch. But hey, got to break up these inefficient, gigantic bureaucracies that aren't doing the work for we, the people.